thank you. So the second question I have is, I'll start with a statement here. Since even just a short time that I've been here in Sitka, I know that land acknowledgements have become formally integrated into the city assembly meetings. School board meetings just recently have begun to start their meetings with land acknowledgement on our campus. Anytime we have a large meeting, an all campus meeting, or with the advisory council, I, as a representative of the university, will start the meeting with land acknowledgement. So again, we're seeing it a lot more, just even in the recent days and weeks and months. And I'm just wondering, I know I mentioned the impact that it has on me as a late arriving guest to this community. I'm wondering how that impacts you as an Indigenous person whose people have been here for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. What, again, from your perspective, what impact does that have on you? What are the thoughts you have? What are the feelings as you listen to and observe and witness land acknowledgements at these multiple events and occasions across the community?
How does it make me feel? You know, it's a lot like taking our rightful place in society and being Tlingit for the time we're living in. And when I think of land acknowledgement and how it impacts me and how it makes me feel pretty good. Taking our rightful place in society, and what I mean by that is when we learn our language, when we learn our culture, the meaning behind our names, and our place in society within ourselves. Then we use that as a foundation for our life. And if we use it as a foundation for our life, we can go on to be anything we want. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, judges, anything we want. As long as we have a foundation for our life. And that's what I'm referring to, the land acknowledgement. When an Indigenous person walks into the university system, they should be proud. They should proudly walk in. And they should have the self-esteem. And they shouldn't feel like they're indigent. They should feel like they have something to offer because they're a student. And the other thing about land acknowledgement, all the programs, sir, that you offer, totem pole carving, canoe, language, all of this is all part of the land acknowledgement and instilling pride in the students. And the other thing I notice is the majority of non-native people actually love us and support us and want to make bridges to support us. So this is what I call the peace initiative part of it. Mr. Kraft, there's a need for us to address the racism, the low self-esteem. And this land acknowledgement will create the balance. And it will do it in such a way that we're going to take our rightful place with dignity, respect, and honor. And we're going to uphold each other. And also, we're going to embrace all the other programs you offer, because our pride will be back. So in a nutshell, that's what I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Those are powerful words. I appreciate it.
I can go next. So what are your thoughts or feelings about this? I have a lot. And so I will first acknowledge that I appreciate the intentionality behind a land acknowledgement, especially those who kind of stepped out on a limb to try to build it into a practice or create that as part of the organizational culture. I know it takes a lot of courage to do so, especially if you're one of those predominantly white institutions. Could be difficult to figure out how to navigate that effectively. So yeah, acknowledgement that it is great that institutions are kind of embracing and trying to build and get a better cultural understanding for what would typically be marginalized populations. So Bob listed off a whole host of issues, even within education, and he's spot on. I will tell you that I go back and forth as far as my thoughts. I've never been passionate about land acknowledgements. That's how I usually state it. And yet I know if I had to kind of sum it up, I would probably say that I'm really trying to grow in how I show appreciation for this act. So because this is a learning opportunity and people are trying to learn more about it, I guess the best thing I could do is share a couple of concerns that I feel, just so that it's kind of out there as people are trying to figure out my perspective, where I'm coming from and why I might have a few hesitations. But again, I'm going to go back to the fact that the intentionality behind it, I have to hold the people up who are trying at this time to make this customary. Some of the concerns that I have related to a land acknowledgement as an institutional practice, one would be that as of late, it is who is the non-native in the room who wants to volunteer to do a land acknowledgement. And I can see why they want somebody from like an outsider. They want somebody who is not an original inhabitant of this land to give acknowledgement, but that feels at times exclusionary. Like I said, if I was here in Sitka, my land acknowledgement would look different from yours, but it would be showing an acknowledgement and appreciation to my father's people, because they, not me, are the original inhabitants of Sitka. And so it doesn't really have to be, I think the person who delivers the land acknowledgement should do so on a voluntary basis and with passion. And they don't necessarily have to be non-native. And by kind of making that a point, it sort of takes it away from what we used to traditionally do and put it into, you guys no longer do it. This is something that we kind of invented. I know that's not the case, but I'm just saying perspective wise, that's how it might feel on the surface. So that's kind of the first one, is the exclusionary principles sort of built into it as I've seen it. The second would be that lack of historical acknowledgement. That is kind of big for me. I appreciate that your first question said, I had never heard of it until I came here. And when I did learn more, I learned that this is something that is customary and goes back hundreds of years. Spot on with that one. I think that always gets lost in land acknowledgements. They become a simple 1 or 2 sentences that says, we as outsiders would like to thank the original, what have you. However it is strung together, it kind of loses the fact that this is a principle of respect that was born in this Indigenous community here, and that we have always done it and it's appropriate. And if people saw it and thought, I really appreciate that they do it, we should do something similar, excellent. That's a way to show, to me, what is cultural appreciation as opposed to cultural appropriation. But if you don't kind of note the originator of it, it does feel a little bit like appropriating. So if you could tie that in, and I know that might be something that we could talk about a little bit later, but I think that that would be important because that grounds it in history. And that said that this is an important concept that we saw, we thought it worked well, and we want to now practice it as well. And then it brings us all together. It's like, yes, let's all give acknowledgement. And then the third one, which Bob definitely hit on, is words are so powerful, but so are actions. And so just like any organization, I'll use UAS as an example. You guys have a mission, you have vision, you have values, you do land acknowledgements as part of that. I would love to see an organization that doesn't just have a 2-sentence acknowledgement, but it's actually built in and serves as kind of a guiding light for daily decisions that would affect the people that you want to show that respect to. So I guess what I'm saying is it's a great start, but I can't wait to see the steps that follow. So it's almost like it started with a land acknowledgement and then ... Fill in the ellipses of what comes after that. So those are kind of my thoughts. Like I said, I go back and forth on it. I tend to think I'm not passionate, and yet I definitely have thoughts on it, and I wanted to share it in a positive way because, like I said, I know that people who are instituting these at this point in time, they're doing it with good intentions, and they really want those actions to follow that. So those are my thoughts right now.
Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, you've touched on exactly the reason why I wanted to have this meeting, because I know there's other perceptions of how this is perceived, and that are different than mine, just because I come from a different place. So that helps me hear what you're saying, and it challenges me. We're going to follow up on that question of what next, or what should institutions be doing beyond land acknowledgement. So I appreciate you kind of giving a foreshadowing of that. We're going to come back to that. Ashlynn, you had indicated you would like to respond to that. Please do.
Yeah, so I agree with like what they both said, and I like feel that they both encompassed it very well. But it's like when I think of the acknowledgements, it's like it's really good starting step because you acknowledge who the people were and are who cared for the land. But I feel like it's one thing to say like this is whose land it was, and we thank them for taking care of it. But I feel like it's another to be saying I feel like that and probably not this, but I feel like sometimes it can be just we know whose land we're on and we recognize that, and then just leave it as like a passing thought, like probably math for a lot of people, not me. But I feel like to actually know and realize what the people, which would be like Kiksadi and Tlingit here, what they did for the land, and that it needs to be acknowledged that we're still here and we are thriving, is like another thing entirely than just saying a simple land acknowledgement, because it might be for a later question, but I feel like how I think of the acknowledgements is like it's about love and respect and knowing like you have a community larger than just of where you are.
Thank you, Ashlynn.
And then it's especially important because we do need to use present tense verbs, and the Tlingit and Haida, Tsimshian people are still thriving in Southeast Alaska. And it just seems obvious to acknowledge, but it is interesting to see, a lot of the hand wringing, oh, should we have a land acknowledgement? You see in that some of the institutions in their meetings, and then others have them every meeting. And it's just important, I think, as a native practice itself. So people, they might not even realize that having the land acknowledgement itself is a native practice, and that's important in itself. But it is important to have some content, like Crystal is saying, and to have some history. You know, you would just be the dumb guy if you were from some place in Europe and didn't know the castle on the hill. You didn't know that there was one, or you didn't know anything about the person who, you know, the family who had the castle. You'd be the only, like, geez, everybody knows that, you know, if it was Salzburg, Austria, or, you know, whatever, the Eiffel Tower, you didn't know what the Eiffel Tower was, you know. And so, of course, it's important for us to acknowledge ourselves, and for other people to acknowledge that we were here, we will be here. But it is interesting yet to see that, you know, how some organizations are slower to the table than others. You know, so many meetings I go to, you know, the Forest Service, whoever it is, they always do it. And maybe because they work with tribes more often. And so some organizations, maybe they're just dipping their toe in. But, you know, but kind of late though, because they've been here, you know, the people have been here forever. So
Thank you all. That's given me some things to think about. So I appreciate that.